Welcome to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today talking about the first day of the Berlin Major. So first of 6 days, first of 3 days for the group stage, and I think I'm just going to do this like I did the last videos. People seem to enjoy it fine enough where I'm just going to sort of talk through, and maybe if I get to rambling a little bit, I'll probably leave it in. I admittedly did cut one or two things from the last video, just for the sake of a little bit of brevity, even though obviously a very long video. So let's see how long this one takes, and do let me know if you would really like me to go back to a more concise form of video, but okay, do let me know if you have any opinions on that. Yeah, 6 Berlin majors, so it's in Berlin in Europe, and the circumstances seem not very good for the players. So a lack of AC makes it just apparently god awful to play. Everyone is sweating out of their minds. I think one of the players from M&M got a pretty intense nosebleed as a result of the heat, and so they had to pause the game for a minute, and I guess there were just massive delays at the beginning. I didn't start watching when it first started up a bit too early in the morning for me, but I mean, I feel badly for the people that got up early to watch it. Maybe if you were in Europe, it wasn't that early for you, but yeah, if you're in the United States or just North America in general, it was probably pretty early, and you had to sit and wait, and that's tough. So yeah, honestly, pretty embarrassing. Ubisoft usually embarrasses themselves some amount every major, but honestly, this is like one of the worst we've seen, and it really sucks. Group A, and this was really tough to call in relation to my predictions. I guess Rogue they probably look like the best team in the tournament thus far, but we are only 2 games in. Every team in every group still has 4 more games to play, and yeah, Rogue just slaughtered Damwon, and then they played, it was Xset their other game. Yeah, they destroyed Xset, not as bad, but I mean, still 7-4, pretty decisive. They did it on Oregon, which Xset is generally pretty strong on. Damwon beat down harder than anyone else, and I had an inkling, I had a bit of a suspicion that they weren't going to do that well, mostly based on the Gamers 8 thing. But I guess I predicted them 3rd in the group, and honestly, it was a bit of a Mickey Mouse prediction, putting Rogue at the bottom. I think I was almost purposely underrating them because I was just unsure of things, but I think even if I gave them what I thought would have been a more proper assessment, I think I still would have been underrating them. So hats off to Rogue. I thought that they weren't going to maintain form coming into international play, especially with Spoit being brand new to the scene. Yes, he did well online in Europe, but I thought playing on LAN internationally would be a whole nother ballpark. I also did have a little bit of a suspicion that Kanto might turn up going back to LAN, and he has thus far. We'll see if he keeps it up. Very, very unimpressive in the regular stage, but very impressive so far in the games that we've seen in this tournament. So yeah, Rogue, I think, maybe the favorite for the tournament at this point, even though it is a bit premature. And Damwon, they're going to need to resurge to make their way back. Yeah, they, I guess, are only 3 points behind 2 of the teams, but man, did they get destroyed. Okay, so that's that. And I guess a pretty clear pecking order has been established. Ninjas in Pajamas are above Xset by record, but one of their wins is against Damwon, and if Damwon keeps playing like they have been, then they're an absolute freebie. Xset haven't played Damwon yet, so pretty clearly, I think at this point, Rogue, Xset, Ninjas in Pajamas, and Damwon are in that order, unless some teams start playing worse or better than they have thus far. And okay, we'll close this up. We'll go to Group B, and not the most shocking thing ever. I expected it would have been Sonics here at number 2 and G2 at number 3, but other than that, FaZe on top, Sandbox on the bottom. Sandbox not doing the best. They are probably performing as I expected them to. A close game against FaZe, but they lost pretty handily to G2. Maybe they can turn things around. These aren't, they didn't get destroyed like Damwon did, so maybe a better sign there, but still. No points on the board for them. Sonic's pretty close game, so yeah, only on the 1 point, and they fell 7-4 to FaZe, and I guess that's even... it doesn't look that close. 7, it's okay. They got 1 point on the board, at least versus G2. They let this slip away from them. Very defender-sided theme park. They were up like 5-1, and then G2 matched it, went to overtime, lost 2 rounds in a row. So, I mean, I guess G2 did break the mold by winning that attack round in overtime, but if I remember right, they started on the defense, so they were definitely favored to win regardless in overtime. So yeah, I mean, we'll see one more Sonics versus G2. This might have been the game of the day, honestly, going just because of the sort of the storyline going into it, and then also just it being a very tight affair. It could have gone one more round to be a bit tighter, but still pretty good gameplay overall. And okay, I guess that does it for this group. I think Sonics have the potential to bounce back, and NA has done awfully. I think the Xset win is the only win. Let me double check that I'm not making that up. 2 losses. Yeah, NA is 1-7, and I think a lot of people are going to be very doom and gloom about it. Obviously, it's terrible, only winning 1 out of 8 games, and I did expect a lot of people's world to come crashing down a little bit. I think some people's expectations for NA coming into this major were just so astronomical. Yes, NA did absolutely dominate at the Charlotte major, but it's just so unrealistic, I think, in the current landscape of Siege for any team, any region, anything like that to just stay that dominant. I did expect either they'd be passed up, which seems to be the case, but there's still more to be played, or at least that other regions would sort of catch up again. Wolves and Rogue looking pretty good, and then APAC a little bit of wild card, and then W7M getting their good shot. So a big bounce back required by some of the NA teams, and I guess XSET in the best position of any of them. Sonics has at least 1 point on the board, but let's go on to the other two groups. Okay, W7M on top as was expected, and they took down Oxygen and Gaming Gladiators, both of them 7-4. So Gaming Gladiators, I think, are putting up a better performance than was expected given how tough this group is. So they actually got a point off Wolves, and they had a fairly close game against against W7M. So I mean, a better performance than was put up by Sandbox or Damwon. Again, Damwon getting destroyed, Sandbox kind of getting destroyed, but not as badly. And then these guys having at least one very close game in which they got themselves a single point. So I mean, better than Oxygen on the day. So they're going to have to do a lot more work if they want to make it into playoffs, but Oxygen is going to have to do even more work. So Wolves and W7M looking like the two likely to advance, and I didn't think this was unreasonable. I picked W7M and Oxygen, and I don't know. Oxygen, they definitely felt like a really strong team coming into it. They attended the last major. They got top 4 at the last major. They were very, very strong for most of this stage, but there were a few things to maybe be concerned about, both in maybe some of the results from some of their games, with them losing the last 2 games of the stage and thus losing out on the first seed, and then also how reliant on Newers they have been. And I think Newers' stats are still quite good, but not good enough to get them across the line against W7M and Wolves. So yeah, maybe I underrated Wolves a little bit, but it just sort of was, honestly, it's for lack of my having watched these other teams that much. I've watched a little bit of Wolves, a little bit of W7M, so part of what I'm going off is just looking at some stats, which isn't always terribly representative, and part of it is off maybe just the sentiment of others, and honestly part of it is probably my NA bias. If I was being unbiased, maybe I would have picked Wolves. Tough to actually say. But that was that group. And then finally we have Group D, and yeah, this one is making me look a bit foolish. Furia and Elevate on 6 points each. Astralis, M&M, 0 points. So the most lopsided group of any group, and I thought I predicted Astralis and M&M to make it out. I thought it was going to be easy for Astralis, and M&M I did think it was an underdog pick. I thought maybe even they had like the worst shot of it. I think maybe Furia and especially Elevate were the very popular picks for second seed coming out of the group, but no, just look at this. And Astralis is probably the biggest surprise of any team. Maybe Rogue's absolute. Well, no, I think Damwon is probably the biggest disappointment. But again, there was indications that might be the case based on Gamers 8. But Astralis, I mean, I talked about how they were the first seed from the purported best region of NA, and yeah, they were there by a very close margin, but they dominated stage 1, and then they got second place at the Charlotte Major, and then they faced a lot of adversity in the second stage and having to play through COVID stuff, and then they still managed to clinch that first seed, and now they're here just getting dumpstered by Furia and Elevate. And no shade to Furia and Elevate, but Elevate just a little bit of a one-note team in the past, or at least at 6 Invitational, where if you could counter their aggression, you countered them outright, but maybe they've really figured things out. Maybe they will get figured out going forward, only 2 games in. And then Furia, just unimpressive showing after unimpressive showing, and maybe a couple decent placements, but going to as many LAN events as they have and having as little overall success as they had, it didn't seem good for them coming into the tournament, but it's worked out for them thus far. I mean, yeah, 14-5 on round differential is massive. And yeah, Furia versus M&M, I think this was the game in which I want to say it was Neo maybe got the nosebleed, and of course you don't just insta lose the game if you get a nosebleed, but I mean, circumstances maybe were affecting them a bit more proportionally than the other teams, but not terribly an excuse. Everyone is absolutely sweating their asses off anyways. But yeah, Elevate didn't even have especially close games. Again, 7-4 is a little close, but yeah, 7-3 and 7-4 doesn't look great, and yeah, M&M also doesn't look great. So unless there is a massive turnaround for either Astralis or M&M or both, this group is all but decided after after the second day. And yeah, that pretty much does it, I guess, for this. I'm gonna take a look at the stats, and that's probably all I have to do. Yeah, so yeah, okay, let's go over the stats, and I'll talk about maybe some of these standout players, maybe a few more trends. Okay, so here we have the full stats. I'm on CGG. Everyone's played 2 maps, so things are fairly comparable, but do keep in mind some teams, some players have played against easier opponents than others, so it's not fully comparable. Not the groups haven't concluded. There is a bit of lopsidedness, but this still paints like an okay picture, as good of a picture as only 2 best of ones can. So we have Wizard on top, and do keep in mind that Ninjas in Pajamas did take a loss. They are 1-1, yet their new player, Wizard, who I think this is his first LAN, I guess, or well, international LAN, I should say. Because I think Brazil plays on LAN and whatever, and I guess Copa Elite 6. But okay, yeah, first international LAN, I believe. Correct me below if I'm wrong, but very impressive showing. About a 2.5 KD coming out plus 14 and flawless on the entry. Not even an entry player, playing the Ace and the Castle. And Ace, yeah, can get some frags. Castle, I think, can get some frags in the way that he doesn't have other concerns. He puts up his stuff and then he gets to go fight people. You know, maybe if you're Smoker or Zombie, even though they're very frag capable operators, they do have staying alive concerns and whatnot. Even characters with like C-Force and stuff, Castle has nothing to worry about in that regard. Anyways, okay, yeah, really impressive coming out from Wizard. Cyber going big, massive. I mean, just 6-2 on the entry, almost a 2 KD coming out here. Absolutely slaughtered his opponents. He was especially popping off in the Sonics match, if I remember right. But I mean, dropping 31 kills, he popped off in both of his games, to be sure. And Kanto, I think the biggest surprise of the first day in terms of a player. So I mean, I don't think people were surprised to see Cyber or Grixer or Fantasy or even maybe Spoit up here. Wizard's still a little bit new, but I think a player that people wouldn't be surprised to see. Based on the stats Kanto has put up, yeah, you wouldn't expect it, I think. He might have even posted a negative rating, or a sub 1 rating, I should say, for the most recent stage, around 1.0, if not below. I want to say below, but I think the lowest, maybe Deepak was the lowest. I don't know. Not a very good rating compared to his teammates, the likes of Cryan and Spoit and whatnot, especially considering the roles he plays. And I thought he was on more Sledge before, but they have him on sort of the Yana here. That might have been a map dependent thing, but yeah, he went crazy against. I'm actually blanking, so let me go back. It was their second game, right? Not the Damwon game. Yeah, against Xset. Yeah, okay. I believe it was against Xset. He was going crazy on Oregon, and he dropped like a lot of kills. So I think he maybe just had like a whatever performance in their game against Damwon, where they crushed. And then he was a really big reason why they defeated Xset with a fairly decent margin. Not even on the entry, just 1 entry kill, and he just got all these kills. Very good to see a player like this return to form, sort of, and I'm really glad it's not another NVK situation for him. And it's just everything is coming up rogue. And then we have Grixer over a 2 KD of 7-1 on the entry. Like, he just, yeah, what do you expect? It's Grixer. He's just always putting up numbers. And as far as the fantasy thing goes, the draft that I'm a part of and I made that video for, I'll probably do an update, maybe after the tournament, maybe I'll do a midway thing, whatever. But I mean, he is a big reason why I'm relatively high on the fantasy thing. I think it was almost foolish to not pick him up, but in the end, if Sonics don't make it out of groups, it might not be good enough for me. So we'll see. And then we have an Elevate player, Mark Short, boys. He's going pretty big, 2.0 KD and fantasy Spoit. And I think Spoit, one of the most impressive players after the first day. Is this the top entry player? So 8, only 1 entry death, going +7. So the best differential, the highest raw number of kills, it looks like, yeah. So going crazy on the entry, even putting up a 2.0 regular KD while doing it. And yeah, I mean, obviously, if you just looked at his stats from UL stage number 2, you'd think, yeah, he's going to go crazy at the major, but that doesn't always necessarily apply. The competition is much more fierce here, and EU is one of the leagues that does not play on land, so a whole different environment. But Spoit seems to be the real deal and is a massive reason why Rogue, I think, looks like perhaps the best team at the event after the first day. And I guess not too much else to look at here. I would just keep sort of rehashing not terribly interesting things. I'll just scroll down, and you can maybe see the bottom. And oh yeah, so Woogieman coded. Damwon getting destroyed. I think Woogieman A few months ago, maybe even like a week ago, or I don't know, maybe even a few weeks ago, but I think a few months ago, people were touting Woogie Man as perhaps one of the best players in the world, and yeah, he did have pretty good regional performances, and I think he was the top rated player on Damwon at the Six Invitational. So yeah, he was going pretty big, and maybe he is a solid player, but having a dreadful tournament here, the lowest rated player, along with another player on his team. And then, well, Vertical, very unfortunately, he's continuing with his not very impressive performance. And I mean, obviously, this is much worse than he put up in the most recent stage. But yeah, Vertical just has not been showing up very well at international tournaments, and probably he's going to need to turn things around along with the rest of his team if they want to make it out of their group. And that's going to be that's a very tall task. W7M and Wolves look very, very good. So okay, I don't have another tab, but yeah, so we're just back here. I guess that's gonna do it. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, corrections, requests, anything, feel free to leave them below. And I probably should have done this at the beginning of the video, and I probably will. I'll just add like a caption or something. Feel free to follow me on Twitter if you like, and I tweet about. Sometimes I don't tweet for a while, and then usually when there's events and stuff, I'll tweet. So if you want to tweet at me, feel free. But feel free to just follow me for my tweets at SylverCypher, SylverCypher, and again, probably I'll have had it on the screen at the beginning of the video, so as to have more eyes on it. And okay, yeah, like and a subscription would be appreciated. With all of that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video.